So let's wait 1 extra minute and then we can start. Meanwhile, please add yourself to the attendees list in the document. Okie dokie. So fill in the agenda, please, also with things that you like to discuss. Otherwise, I think we can start. Let's start with the standard ritual. Do you see my screen? I see thumbs up. Perfect. So let me pick up something from my other Chrome tab that you cannot see at the moment. Hello, Christian. Let me share again the document in the Zoom chat so you can also have a list. If you have any topic, please add to the agenda. Otherwise, I would like to start with some status updates about the governance committee election. Today should have been the last day for nominating people. However, given KubeCon, given KubeCon, we lost 1 week. Basically, everyone was busy around preparing everything for the Chicago visit. So we decided to extend it instead from end of today, end of the month. Let me open a better link because that one was not rendering nicely. So we will run the period to submit nomination until the 30th of November. Currently, we have some nominations. We have 3 people. Oops. So let's open the current election document so it's better rendered. For candidates, we have David Hirsch, then Thomas Schutz. Everyone should know already these 2 names, contributed to Keptn already quite a lot. And there are some nominations, for instance, Mauricio Salatino. I reach out to him. He will let us know as soon as possible if he wants to join, express his interest, but he needs to check before he can really commit. And also we have someone else. I cannot say this name. I will butcher it. Nagaraju. We nominated himself. Hopefully we will see him around so he can present himself. And please spread the word if someone wants to join us as a governance committee member. They can fill a PR to add themselves.
Giovanni, I have a question. People who served last year, is this a 1-year term has to be, or are people who served the last year, can they be renominated?
That's a very great question. I don't know much about this.
Of course, do any of them want to serve a second year is another question, but
yeah.
I just wonder what the rules were.
So I think you can be voted again. Yes, there is no issue for being nominated multiple times.
Okay.
Yep. Also, let's see distance. Yep. You should be able to present yourself again. I will reach out to Alex, Alois, and Anna to see if they want to run for another year. But yep, that's everything from the community tab block. Is there any other topics?
090 since we last met?
Oh, yes. I think Moritz already posted an announcement around that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
we
exactly.
found Moritz, would you do the honor to present the highlights?
Sure. Yeah, so we released 090 last week, I believe, with some minor hiccups in pipelines as always.
Hmm.
Yeah, the general changelog is pretty long, so I kind of formulated a small release announcement message if you want to open Slack, or I can just copy it here again. The main features basically are that we fully revamped our Helm charts. We're now making use of a concept that's called umbrella charts, which means all the components of Keptn are kind of encapsulated into subcharts, and then we have the Keptn Helm chart that only makes use of those as dependencies, basically. That makes maintainability much better and gives users far more flexibility in configuring which components you actually want to install if you don't want to install all of it. Yeah, so that should be easily possible now. We also updated the install docs for that, but more to come there. The second big feature is scheduling gates. As you might know, in Kubernetes 127, they added support for something called scheduling gates, which is basically kind of a gating mechanism for pods to be scheduled to a cluster. You can add a gate, and as long as that gate is there, a pod will not be scheduled onto a node, basically. And since Keptn has special scheduling behavior around the pre-deployment task and evaluations and stuff like that, we had our own scheduler that kind of took care of that. But with Kubernetes 127, we're actually making use of scheduling gates instead of our custom scheduler, basically. So that makes yeah, the whole footprint of Keptn a little bit smaller again with newer versions of Kubernetes. And we use less custom stuff and more out of the box stuff, which is good. Yeah, you don't really need to care about it too much as a user because we have some version checks in the help chat. So when you install Keptn on a cluster that has the right version, we will just use scheduling gates by default. And if you don't have 127 or later, we just use the scheduler from Keptn as before, basically. So it's pretty transparent to users. And yeah, there's lots of smaller things also if you want to check the changelog, but that's the main two bigger things we checked off with this release.
I would also say analysis feature is now generally available. It's still behind the feature flag, but all the details are implemented. And I would later add to this document what is exactly the feature flag to use in order to enable it. Any other topics for this? Then I think we can go over to the documentation time block about the nice documentation restructuring proposal from Moritz. Do you want to share the screen or should I open the ticket?
I don't know if I hold the moderation here or Mac wants to do it, but I can definitely take
No,
over.
I think you should do it. Sure.
Sure. Okay. Then we'll share here. So you should see my screen now. Okay. So in actually beginning of October, I added this epic, which is the information strategy that we use in our Keptn docs. I kind of wanted to rework the whole structure and put stuff into different places so that it makes it easier for users to find. And yeah, since we got some feedback that stuff is generally not so easy to find. The first step was actually to do some user interviews. We did 2 user interviews and got some initial feedback. that was already pretty valuable. And from that, from the results of that, I basically went ahead and created some quick win issues. Most of those are actually done already. That's the first tickets here. One is still open and assigned to a contributor, and everything else is basically closed already from the quick wins. That's already in the 09 release, if I'm not mistaken. And after the quick wins, there were some more long-term goals I also wanted to tackle. And those are some of the new tickets I added here. And the biggest one is the new structure for the whole file tree of the documentation, basically, that I came up with. What I did was I basically took the whole old file tree and then kind of took the Flux CD documentation as an inspiration. Structure our docs slightly differently, move stuff around. Some pages were split into two, some were combined. Yeah. So all in all, the whole restructuring process resulted in 5 tickets here that I would like to refine now, basically. Any questions so far to this? Okay. So then let's maybe. Sorry.
For the restructuring, I think we can already remove the ready for refinement label since we just discussed that.
Yeah.
And you can directly assign to me. I will work on this on Friday. I already booked my time for just doing that. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
It will
yeah,
be
so
a huge PR. So
it will be a huge PR. I tried to basically split the restructuring in a way that is atomic in the sense of PRs, basically. So this whole restructuring block here is mostly just moving files, no content rework. So just moving files, fixing the links, be done with it, basically. And then the other tickets are stuff that also needs content changes. I kind of split those off into separate tickets so that it's easier to review and also easier to work on and less error prone. So this is the whole new structure here. I added links to all the different docs pages that should be under the headlines here. That's that. I won't go into full detail here now. You can just read up on this. Okay, and then we have a few other tickets that also revolve around restructuring. One is the auto-generated API reference. In a new doc structure, there's a whole block here called components, which kind of replaces what is the architecture section right now. And I want to move the reference documentation under the separate components there and split it basically out into other subcomponents. That's the plan here. Although this is just about the auto-generated API reference, not the CRD reference pages, because those are maintained manually, and those will be moved in the other ticket as well. Yeah, so this is basically about updating the auto-generation script to basically put stuff into the new destination folders and updating the pipeline that checks if everything is up to date for those. And then moving the already generated stuff. Any questions to that? Anything to add? Cool. Then I will move on. I created another ticket for a separate page for the horizontal pod autoscaler usage. Right now, that's kind of buried in a subsection of a page. We open the Keptn docs, you'll probably find it. I don't even know if I can find it this fast.
User guides, metrics.
Metric.
At the very bottom.
Yeah. So it's just a subsection here, although it's quite an important feature. So I believe it's worth to make it its own page.
A question for
Uh,
that. It refers to a blog post. Should we incorporate that blog content into this? Or do we want to
Yes.
leave that as a blog?
The blog content should stay as it is, but we can take content from that and incorporate it into the docs page if needed.
I would say we cannot copy paste the blog post as is,
No, of course
but
not.
we can get
No.
inspiration about the structure of the blog post to write a more documentation focused type of content.
Right. I'm thinking the blog posts tend not to get maintained as things change. I don't know if this will change, but
Yeah, as Johnny said, the blog post can be used as inspiration, basically.
right.
As of now, I think it should still be up to date. Yeah, so I just want to make this its own page. I also added here that the user guide can already expect the user to have a Keptn metric and Keptn metrics provider in place, because we have that covered on other pages and we can just link to it. That will just reduce duplication. We can have like, I don't know, a small header at the beginning, like
Before you start.
exactly. Before you
Yeah.
begin, make sure you have this and that prepared so that it's easy
Right.
to follow.
Because this was
Basically.
the end of the chapter that had all that in, so we'll just link to the other ones. So
Exactly.
yeah.
And then add some more content. Cool. Any other questions to that? Awesome. Then let's move on. Update the architecture sections. This ticket doesn't have that much content yet because I'm not super sure what we really want to add there. Right now, the architecture section that we have already has this components block here that will be moved to the top. But what is definitely missing here is some diagrams to show the architecture, like to illustrate everything better. And some of the pages have very little content and some have a huge amount of content. That can be kind of equalized a little bit as well, I think.
We still have an architecture diagram that me and Thomas created a year ago, which is a bit outdated.
And
Maybe we
I
can.
can't read it. Can anybody read that? I have tried everything. I can barely view that.
I mean, you will probably need to open it in a tab,
Yeah.
but then,
Yeah, but I think we can.
but it's, yeah, it's outdated probably.
Yeah.
It's outdated, yes. And because SLOS, CLI, CRTs are basically
Yeah,
Keptn
that stuff
analysis and value template.
Analysis features.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we can rework this and include that as a diagram, high-level diagram that explains.
And will we need two separate ones for the two scheduling mechanisms? Because this certainly has the old one. And does that change it, or maybe just the scheduling happens here? So
Now I would have a new diagram that explains the things, and then we can have a black box that says either readiness gates or scheduler, doesn't matter
yeah.
at high level.
Okay. What do you think about separate diagrams per component?
Yes. Also to
Yes.
describe the flow.
Yeah. But then I would actually split that out into two tickets, one for the high level architecture, the overview basically, and one for the components.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is for the component section here, better content and diagrams, as we said. What I envision is that that you open the component page, you get like a, I don't know, let's say 2 to 4 paragraphs of super high level. What is the component's responsibilities? What does it do on a high level? For example, I don't know, the lifecycle operator manages the general lifecycle of your workloads. You can also have your deployment tasks and evaluations and stuff like that. You also get full observability over the whole lifecycle. And that fleshed out into like 3-4 paragraphs would already be enough together with a chart. Not yeah, like a architecture chart. That's kind of my vision for this. And same for the other components, basically. Okay.
I think an
I
important
will.
question, and maybe too much for, is why do we need the architecture section? Moritz and I had a little bit of discussion on this, but to me, what I'm looking for is something for, it should not be information that somebody needs to get started, but it should have the information they need to troubleshoot when something happens. And it's, you know, my idea, the best ones I've ever seen were laid up to log files and said, you know, this is how it should normally happen. This, and this happens, and in some detail. But that's going to be hard. Moritz thinks that's going to be very hard to maintain, at least while. But it's just something to have in the back of your mind is, you know, troubleshooting is, and also people who are designing, you know, can I make it do this and that will help for that. But I think I think it's important for us to think about at least what the architecture is, why we're doing it. It'll help us know what to put in it. I'll shut up now.
No, thanks for the. I like that idea. What behind what this architecture section is for. I disagree on the log. The rest is I totally agree, but the log, no, I don't think it's possible to maintain that because
Our
it's not
logs
anymore
are not
like
under our control. We've got too many logs out there because we
no,
got
I
rid of
mean
them.
so if you just look at logs for troubleshooting, that should be more like an FAQ, not architecture, because we don't have a well-defined list of log lines that occur one after the other because it's an event-driven system, sort of.
Right.
Something happened on the CR and we react on that change. So we cannot predict completely how the log should be.
Right. Right. But it's something to have in the back of your mind, you know. I'm not saying that we make it how to read the log. It's if you're reading the log, this is what's in the background or something like that. So the log illustrates the architecture rather than,
I would
I don't know.
say we should have better maybe log messages. Like a good code is a code that when you read it explain itself. A good log message, I would argue, then it's when you read the text there makes clear what's the error and what you can do
Right.
to fix it.
Right.
So we'll not tackle that as a documentation, but more into code.
Yeah. If
From a,
documentation is code and code is documentation. So
Brad, you were saying something?
yeah, just from an end user perspective, I always like personally to see the architecture because I want to see how it looks like in production. So for the people that we want to target as end users to get adoption, I think architecture section is important. Things like cert manager, you know, can I use my own one? See how the architecture works with cert manager and other components that I already have in my platform. So for me, I think architecture is quite important.
No, I agree. Also with the production in mind, if I would run
Yeah,
Keptn in production, I need to understand the architecture to see if it fits accord to my
yeah,
policies.
right.
Yeah, makes sense.
because I'm not like when I try stuff, I don't want to just do the killer coders. I want to go deep into production mode to see how it's going to look and see if it's a good fit. And I don't think we should really target the tire kickers too much that are just going to be there and spin it up and don't really understand it. The more advanced people are generally the ones that will adopt it because you know a lot of people were not very advanced, unfortunately, in this cloud native at the moment.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So then what do you think about like high level what the component does and then some diagrams? Or would you go into more detail there?
Yeah, you could also, I mean, it depends on how much time we have allocated to it, but some common reference architectures, even an extension of that would be quite cool as well. So showing what the architecture looks like beside Argo CD, or sort of
I get
common
it, yeah.
components of the cluster already would be, you know.
I do actually
yeah.
have that in mind already, but in a slightly different way for this whole structural rework. I kind of want to also do what Flux does, which is having separate guides to kind of know how to integrate it with different tools.
This is
Right.
great, yeah.
So for Keptn, I want to see something like Keptn plus Argo, Keptn plus Flagger, Keptn plus Flux, maybe Kyverno. Pages that specifically go into detail about how to integrate with other tools.
Yeah,
Other
exactly,
specific tools, and have a subpage for that.
Yeah.
yeah,
But
it's very
that's
interesting.
the how-to. I think we still need architecture in the background. Again, the deeper dive.
It's somewhat how to, but I mean, you want
Maybe,
to paint the picture of the architecture diagram in your head before you even understand it or go into it.
yeah.
So yeah. Then I would say let's go with kind of those overview pages for architecture, and then I already have the pages for integrating with other tools in mind, and then we can see if that's enough or if we need like
Right.
actual
I
diagrams
agree.
for that or baby steps.
Also, with the argument that high-level architecture, it's less prone to change compared to detailed architecture that we need every time to update every time we do a change. So let's start from high level. If it's not enough, then we go into the nitty-gritty details when we are more stable, so there is less likelihood that we need to adapt and maintain those pages over and over and over again.
Sounds good. Okay. I think I have one last ticket for that. Let me see. Refresh that to see what is still. Okay, yeah. Update the integrate page. So we have this what is it page here? User guides, integrate Keptn with your applications, which has lots and lots of useful content, but it's kind of a mixture of topics, I would say. And this page can basically be fully dissected, and the content can be moved either to separate pages if it's important, or look through and see if it duplicates, and then either delete it or move it to a page that's already existing. So what did I write down here? Yeah, so for the basic annotations and labels versus annotations in with Keptn in mind, for example, that's a good fit for a separate page. It's used quite often, and it can be linked to quite often, I think, in the docs. Then we can remove that part from that page. Auto app discovery is also worth its own page, I think, because it's kind of a I don't know, well-known, frequently used feature. So we should make it more prominent. And then one last thing is the subsection about pre and post deployment tasks. We already have a page for that. So I don't think it needs to be there again. And ideally,
Well, no, the details about the annotations are not, yeah. We don't have duplicated stuff now. This is where everybody's. But yes, I think that needs to be closer to the stuff about tasks than rather than annotations. This much we inherited.
Yeah, so ideally, in the end, this page can be deleted and all the content will either be moved or deleted. Mostly moved, I think.
Yeah.
And then whatever is valuable enough, we'll get it on page, or we move the content to a page that's already existing, that's already around that topic. I think that should be the result of this. Any questions? Okay, cool. Thank you for sticking around for me. I think actually there's one more here. that needs refinement. It's actually assigned to a contributor already, and they started working on it. Is to kind of improve the intro paragraphs for our CID reference. That's something we noticed from the user interviews. There's no TLDR. What does this CRD do? Why do I need it? Why do I need to set it up? We do have intro paragraphs, but either most of the time, actually, they go into lots of detail already. So we can kind of improve there. And yeah, I just wanted to bring this up because we haven't talked about it yet, but we already have a contributor working on this. They actually have a PR open and got some reviews already.
Mm.
But yeah. Okay, I think that's most of the important docs issues that I wanted to refine. Let's see what else we have. We actually have a few more. Okay. Do we still have time for docs, or shall we move on to other tickets?
Well, I would say move on. You got tons of them.
It's not
Does
that many,
anybody else
actually.
have-
It's still like, this is half documentation still.
Does anybody else, I guess, Brad, does anybody else have anything they want to talk about in documentation?
I would say let's go.
Cool. Otherwise,
Brett,
let's go.
do you have something?
No, thank you. Yeah, all good for myself.
I think we can go over the tickets one after the other. Top down.
Sure. But then documentation. Okay. Then let's go through the docs tickets first, and then in the other block, let's talk about the others. What shall we start with? Maybe this one, because it's kind of easy. During my restructure planning, I noticed that we don't have an uninstall page. We should have one. Yeah. I think generally how to install Keptn using Helm, since that's the default installation method now, would be enough. And then I also added here, add some caveats on what happens to your CRDs and your CRs, so that people are aware of if there's data loss, what they should prepare for before uninstalling and stuff like that.
Yeah, and we have the basic command is actually in the upgrade right now. So we can steal it from there. If I run that command, does that if I put Keptn into my existing cluster, when I run that uninstall command, are all traces of Keptn gone, or are there
No,
vestiges that hang around?
they will stay there because they've been shipped
Yeah,
somewhere else.
Yeah.
because you're generally like if you use GitOps, your CRDs will stay in your admission webhooks, etc. Will still hang
Right.
around even if you delete the Helm chart.
So is that, I mean, yeah, so what Moritz has is caveats of what happens with CRDs and CRs. I was gonna say, what else do you have to do manually if you want all vestiges of Keptn to disappear? And I don't know if those are both the same, if those are two issues or one.
I think it can be one.
Yeah.
Had some issue in the past that webhook, that mission webhook was not removed, or
Me
the
too.
metric.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, it happened to me and it was blocking everything.
Maybe let's add a sentence so we don't forget to mention, or whoever will write that, to consider webhooks.
I think Adam and I did have some analysis notes on that as well.
That.
Perfect. Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. Okay. Next one. I want to continue with this. In case you didn't notice, and I think most people didn't, we added a spell checker action to Keptn to kind of get rid of typos and consolidate some wording and stuff like that. We kind of have the spell checker actually in place. It has a file with expected words. It has a file with ignore patterns for stuff like, I don't know, some random hashes that are in some files and so on. And this spell checker action actually not only checks the docs, but it checks all the files, also code and stuff. This is important for everybody, I think. Yeah, and of course, since we have this now, and it may inhibit users or contributors to get their stuff merged, we should add some documentation around it into the contribution guide.
We actually have a PR.
Yeah, I'm
Though it's
seeing,
very minimal, and I don't know if it needs to go have more information in it than that. So we start with minimal, and
but yeah. Yeah, so the PR is something to review for maintainers if you have time. Other than that, I think some general info for now is fine, because the spell checker has a very nice summary of what needs to be done if there's errors, basically. So in the docs, if we make users aware of that, I think the rest is pretty self-explanatory for the beginning.
yeah.
So added this general info, info about this job summary, as I mentioned. That kind of leads users to other places and how to handle errors. And then some info on the different config files that are there, like the expected word list, the patterns, and also file exclusions. That's the 3 configuration options that you have. Yeah. Any questions? Anything else to this? And let's move on. This is also something that's already assigned and almost done. We had a contributor come in and add a use case that they had, which is filtering out if you have a multi-container workload, filtering out which container should be used to calculate the default workload version. That's actually done at merge already, which is cool. Thank you for that. But some documentation needs to happen. Kind of let other people know, and the contributor actually also opened the PR for that already. Cool, Mac already approved. So yeah, that's basically to add the missing documentation about. It's actually a new annotation that you can use to define the container that Keptn should use to calculate the version. Just to make people aware of stuff that's happening here. Mac, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, that's the general. Not trying to do it because I was hoping that we could just point to the dictionaries and say if you want to know what the legitimate words are. But I've wasted more time than I should have trying to figure out how to look at those dictionaries. There's stuff that's missing. So I did a test though, but it does appear that it's allowing both British and American spelling on words where they're different. And that's fine with me. I don't know if we care. I'm perfectly comfortable with it. A lot of writers think you have to choose one and stick to it, which seems heavy-handed in this day and age. But so I'm still thinking, and we have come up with a few standards now that, when you're talking about something, a job, a workload in general, that's lowercase. So I'll put principles in there, and I'm hoping we can link to a place that I can look and see, what are all the Keptn special words and what's the proper way. And some of those we may need explanation about how they can be used. Keptn itself has already got a section in there, so this will be a growing document. But
I think you need to kind of split between conventions and spell checking, because one is mostly grammar and the other one is like capitalization and stuff, which is kind of also grammar, but in this case it's mostly kind of invented words.
Yeah.
Is it maybe some sort of glossary?
Well, I'm
I bet
thinking, I mean,
kind
looking
of.
at the Google style guide is actually, I think I linked to that for general terms. My bugaboo setup versus setup and login versus login, which are, I spent half my life changing those,
Okay.
so those general terms are there. So hopefully, and I'm hoping we can just use that. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. If I could find the dictionary, I might do it for what are our Keptn special terms, or what, and Kubernetes. Got to see what they've got, because the Kubernetes special terms, we need to make sure we're adhering to those standards, I suppose.
The thing is, the spell checker action won't really trigger for all this stuff.
No,
Like,
no,
so I think we need to split it off in this ticket. I don't think this is actually about the spell checker at all.
okay, no, this is not supposed to be a spell checker thing. It's just supposed to reflect it's like, in the course of doing the spell checker, we came up with some things. And I was hoping that I was going to be able to look at the dictionary and see some things and some principles and stuff. So far, I haven't found the dictionaries that will help me do that. So
Dictionary is
Inside
oh,
the
it's not
actions.
yeah,
This is the 3 files here.
yeah.
Included files, expected words, and excluded patterns. If
Can
you
we change the
open this,
name of patterns.txt to exclude patterns?
yeah, I think so. This is just the default naming. So this is the expected word list. It's super long, as you can see. And there's really weird stuff inside as well, because it also checks code, and code sometimes has weird stuff. Like this, for example, VND, VWC, VWH, this sort of thing. I can send this link. Okay, so
I'm
what
sorry, I was
actually is
muted so I could yell at the dog, and you weren't hearing me.
Oh.
Does that dictionary, does that have Keptn special terms, Kubernetes special terms, and industry terms in it?
It does have Keptn terms, as
Okay,
you can see, lots of them. It doesn't have Kubernetes terms because we have a off-the-shelf dictionary for that.
okay, where is that?
That's wait. That's linked in the languages, and then
We can do this. We don't have to do this with everybody's time. Anyhow,
this one here.
yeah.
Which has, yeah, again, almost 1,000 different words. That's for Kubernetes. So that's the other link. I will also provide that.
And actually, we might just give a list of where, in the section, which is very short about using spell check, that here's where the dictionaries are.
Shall we add anything to this ticket now? Because
Nah, I don't think
wouldn't
so.
know what to
Maybe
work
the
on,
2
honestly.
links.
But this document is already started. This is just a ticket to add a few things that have come up in the course of doing the spell checker, just to bring it up to date. So it's not a massive.
Okay. What else? We have one more. Adapt docs for new Keptn context and variables. I think we can just refine that next week.
Yeah.
there was a user requesting adding the Keptn context or the context that's also used in the Dino and Python runtime, also to the container runtime. We don't have
Yeah.
that right now, but we should add it.
And is
So
there an issue to add the context to the Dino and Python?
We already have that.
it's already there.
Oh, okay. So I mean, there's nothing here that links to where the
Yeah,
information
this-
is of the feature.
We can talk about this ticket next week. It's not fully
Okay.
done yet.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So then, if there's nothing else about docs, I would move on to some other tickets.
Yes.
A quick one here. We're removing the performance test pipeline. I think we have discovered the load test already.
Yep. The performance test is running nothing. Basically starts the code test suite and there are no tests there. So we can get rid of that because we move everything to the load test pipeline. More
I
end-to-end
see somebody's already
performance
working on it.
test. Yeah.
Then this is from Anna. She's not here, so we'll skip that. But this is from Andre here. Unify configuration options for lifecycle operator. Andre, do you want to take over?
Yeah, I can briefly describe. Currently, we have multiple options how to configure stuff in the lifecycle operator. For example, some things we configured via environment variables of the deployment of the lifecycle operator, and some things are configured via the Keptn config CRD. I would suggest that we should unify these configuration options where it makes sense that it should be runtime configurable, should be configured via the Keptn config, and what's basically a static installation thing should be via the environment variables. But now that we have Helm charts, we're mostly speaking about Helm values, and then propagate these values further to the deployment of the operator. Yeah. I looked at some parameters that can be moved around, but I guess we since then added a few of them. So it's more of a also part of this ticket to go through them and actually decide where it makes sense for which use case.
I added that the env variable should be configurable through Helm. That was missing. I think we need that,
Okay.
right?
Thanks.
Yeah. But not for the stuff that we set via the Keptn config, right? Because there we might have this chicken and egg problem. Okay.
Yeah. And
I
also
just added it to the, I think this is the right one, right? Keep configuration.
Or we deploy a Keptn config out of the box through Helm. Although
We have kind of a chicken and egg problem with that.
why?
Because like first time installation would mean you apply the CRD and also a CR for that CRD. And then also the same chicken and egg problem kind of happens if you have an upgrade and the CRD changed and you also already updated your Keptn config. So if you apply the Keptn config first with a field that's only in a new CRD version, it will be rejected
that you're
and
right.
stuff like that. So
No, you're right.
it's good to separate it into runtime and install time configuration.
No, no.
yes. And also, if we would go with this, the if we apply one Keptn config and the user applies its own custom Keptn config, then we need to kind of merge these two. Of course, the user one will override, but we still need the logic for merging it or whatever. So
It's already the case if I apply to Keptn config.
with two different names?
Yep.
Okay.
It's still the problem. But
Yeah. So now
something
we
for
have that
future.
solved with documentation.
No, that's a future as problem. Let's first refactor the code base. Yep.
Anything else to add here?
We can go over the ticket from Anna also. It's nothing crazy.
Sure.
I can take it over. In the Helm chart, there is a problem where now we have an umbrella chart and we refer to the subcharts. And every subchart has an image pool policy. And I don't want to specify if not present or always for all different values. I would like to have also this as a global value, which is propagated down everywhere through all the different subcharts. So we should add a new global image pool policy. And the subcharts should make use of this global value. If it's not present, then they will use the local chart one. But Anna provided already quite good reference links, so it should be quite easy for the community member, the empty man.
Yeah. There's somebody working on it already.
Maybe a stupid question from my side, but image pool policy, this also applies then to the task executions where runtime, for instance, is being pulled or
No.
It doesn't. This is just for the Keptn images themselves.
Okay.
The image pool policy for task definitions, I think you define them directly there in the task definition. That would also be an interesting setting from actually, no, that would be runtime, so it should be in the Keptn config. Okay, and then we have one more here from Anna, that function.
This, I think we can close it, given my PR that get rid of this docs tooling. And we have two different shortcodes. We have embedded and docs embedded. Embedded looks for remote URLs, and docs embedded instead looks for local files. But Anna wanted to have a more smart one, where we have a single one, and based on if it starts with Keptn/lifecycle, we use the remote part of it. Instead, if it's everything else, we use the local one. But I would rather have two different shortcodes so we can fetch remote files from everywhere, not just from our website. If you want to include an image from a static source, we can do that.
It's almost like a security vulnerability, honestly. Fetch
Why?
content from anywhere.
Yes, but this will happen at build time.
Yeah.
So we control
Even worse.
what. No, but we can control what is downloaded because you have the link before we can merge the PR and it goes to Netlify. During PR review, we can vet the URL.
Mhm.
And anyhow, the current one, the remote one, still only fetch things from our GitHub repo.
So we have the two things. So is the ticket still relevant then? Anna wants to
decision
combine
is-
them basically, or
The original idea was to combine both, but for me, I would rather have two different actions
then we
than
can
have
close
a
this
very
basically.
smart one. Yeah, I would suggest to close it. But I want to hear the rest of the team opinion.
Otherwise, I will put.
Is that agreed with himself?
I think it's fine.
By Christian.
That basically, I think.
Yes.
Okay. And then we have the one last ticket, which is kind of on hold. I put it on hold and with this discussion. But I'm not sure if we should actually do that or not. I want to discuss it a little bit here. We have like 5 minutes left. since now we have the umbrella chart, it's kind of tricky for users to find all the right values, Helm values, since some of them or most of them are actually buried in the subcharts. Buried as in one level deep, but still. So the question is if we maybe want to move all the Helm values up to the top level so that users have one full default values file to start from, basically, or if we should keep them in the subchart files as they are right now. I think the options are either we move it or we kind of solve it through documentation, which we already did.
But right now,
Yeah.
if they want to reconfigure something that's in a subchart, they have to copy it from the subchart up to the main Helm, right?
That, or they check the documentation and write it themselves.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever used Cube Prometheus stack Helm chart? You can install things like Grafana as well, so you can choose to either have it at the top level, or you can go into the Grafana chart and still add those values that will magically work. Does that make sense?
It's the same here. You can still
The
have
same
one
here.
Helm values
Yeah.
file to add, like, to combine all the values, and then it will trickle down in the subcharts. But it's just hard to configure from the get-go because the top one, the umbrella Helm values file, is basically empty because everything is in the ones below.
Yeah. So
I
think
show this
if you
off here.
can override the subcharts in the umbrella chart, then that works perfect.
So good
In my
as
opinion. Yeah.
currently
Good
we
as
are
it
doing.
is.
Yeah.
This is the Keptn umbrella chart values file, the default one. So you just have enable, disable for the components, and then the global values, and everything else is in the subchart.
Yeah.
But you could,
And
of course, here.
Are you proposing to
I'm-
bring more of the subchart home values up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. But
Will that
even right now, you
would they
still have
be-
the option to do like more configuration here.
Yeah.
All of the values from the subcharts basically can still be set either way. It's just a little bit harder to find for users.
Would you propose to only copy default values up into the umbrella chart of the
Yeah,
subchart?
have all the defaults set basically there.
Yeah.
Maybe for example, you can open the metric operator values.
I like it because I think having all of it on the umbrella chart, it gives you visibility of what's going on.
Yeah, that is to basically copy all of this and push it
Basically
into
copy paste this file.
the metrics operator subsection of the top level value.yaml.
And copy or move?
Copy.
Copy.
Okay, so it would still be in the subchart,
Yes.
but I
Yes.
would, yeah.
Then
That,
there
Yeah,
would
it
need
would
to
still
be
be-
some
I like that.
precedence mechanism.
Trying to explain
Yeah.
what they have to do if they want to tune one of those was awkward to write. So,
Yeah, this way is good because it's a one-stop shop for values.
right.
Yeah, the precedence mechanism would be fairly not hard. It would be the same for everything, but here we will need to add it into every single configuration option in the actual template files then.
And what engineering process would we put if you updated a subchart? Would we have like a definition of done is that you have to update the umbrella
Can you
chart
repeat? Sorry.
when you change values?
I
Like
didn't get that.
how? Sorry. Let's say that someone updates the subchart in the future. How are we going to sort of make them update the umbrella to reflect that change so it's not drift?
I would honestly do that at release time. When we're releasing
Release
the
time.
umbrella chart, we pull the different values.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So you just do it each time, you just do a copy and paste.
Exactly.
Good
At
idea.
release time, there is an
Yeah.
automation that pulls those files.
Yeah, smart and easy. Yeah.
Moritz, you have a different opinion by your face.
I think local development will get, or generally development will get harder with this if you don't have the same thing
Why?
locally.
Why? Because how you
The
configure
Helm chart
Keptn
will behave
will be the
differently.
same.
But
No,
it's tagged to a release, right? It's tagged to the release number.
Yeah, but if you think about local development, if the main values file just has different content,
So you're saying, let's
the main
say,
values file, in my mind,
yes,
if we have automation for this, the main values file would stay like this, and on release in the pipeline, we copy in the values.
I see your point.
But then we have
You might
different
have,
state in local development compared to the actual thing in the end.
yeah, so PRs will have this file over and over changed. You're suggesting that.
Also that, yeah.
Because it won't change much the local development, because how we configure and install Keptn is the same.
Yeah, kind of. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not fully convinced, but I can't really put my finger on it right now.
Maybe worth to do a research how it feels if there is such an automation before we can decide what to go do with this ticket.
Could you do a somewhat hybrid approach where the developer, the person changing the subchart updates the umbrella chart when they do PRs, and then you just still do the release copy and paste just in case?
Worst case, actually, we could have a workflow that checks every time one of those value.yaml files changed, then we need also to have the main umbrella chart value.yaml change. Otherwise, we fail.
We already have the automation to check if the Helm values documentation files were auto-generated again after changing the Helm values. So we could also have a separate one that just checks if the files have the same content mostly.
Won't the documentation not cover partially also this use case, theoretically?
No. It will cover that the main documentation is also up to date. But if you just don't update it,
yeah, true. Okay.
backward pass. We would need to actually do kind of if
It gets complicated, yeah, because you could have automation to generate the documentation for the values, but then you have to have
that's something we have already.
Yeah, and then it gets complicated when people search. They might in Google it might come up with the old version when they're doing the new one, and like user error gets complicated.
I don't know. Maybe it would be good to do a little bit of research on this.
Exactly. Just let 1 week pass through so we can digest the information that we discussed today, and we can think about this ticket and talk again next week.
Sounds good. Then I'll leave it on hold and with the needs discussion level here.
Perfect. Thank you, Moritz. And we're also a bit over time.
And also done.
Nice.
For those two, but we said we discussed. Cool.
Then thanks everyone for joining. I hope you will have a nice rest of your day, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.